I'm back with some more pastry for you. This one is a beauty for the summer. It's very easy to make. I know I say that about everything, but again, I truly do believe even French pastry is easy. You just have to try it a few times, and I'm going to try and keep this as simple as possible. Yes, we are going to make our own pastry dough. If that is not something you want to endeavor, yes, you can go to the store and buy yourself some ready-made pastry dough, but please make the rest from scratch. So for a pastry dough, I've just got some regular all-purpose flour in this bowl. I'm going to put a pinch of salt in. And then I pre-cut some cold unsalted butter. I've had it in the fridge this whole time because I want to keep it nice and cold. This is going to go into the bowl as well. And I'm just going to take a minute just to toss the butter around in the flour. And once all the butter is coated, you're just going to use your fingers, particularly your thumb and your index and middle finger, and just push the butter into the flour. It's important that the butter is cold so that you're not pushing melted or soft butter into the flour. We still want the butter to have a little bit of texture and shape to it so that when it goes into the oven, the water from the butter boils and evaporates up and off, sort of pushing the layers of pastry or flour up along with it. And then the remaining butter fat fries the flour that's left behind, and that's how you get kind of a flaky, crispy, although still light pastry. So just push this in as fast as you can, again, trying to keep the butter cold. And once your butter is all broken down into small pieces, like I said, it's just going to be kind of like a shaggy crumble topping. To bring it together, we're going to use a little bit of very cold water. I'm just going to start with just about half of this and incorporate it. And if I need to add a little bit more, I will. So just sort of toss it around. And then the test to see whether or not it is or has enough moisture to it is to just give it a squeeze with your hand. And you're looking for it to hold together and show like the shape of your hand and where your knuckles are, like in between your fingers. But if it completely falls apart, it's still a little too dry. This is just on the edge. So I'm just going to add about 2 more teaspoons of the cold water and give this a final toss. All right, I've just got some cling film here. The dough is going to need to rest and get cold again before we roll it out. And the easiest way is just to tumble all of this dough. And again, it's not a cohesive ball at this stage. And just use the plastic wrap to press this into a flat disc. It will cool down faster if it's flat as opposed to being in a round. And you can also make the dough up until this stage, double wrap it and put it in a freezer bag. And you can keep this in the freezer for up to a couple months. This is our disc of dough. This is going to go into the fridge for at least 20 minutes while we prepare the rest of this fruit recipe. Next up for these mini apricot frangipane tarts is to make the frangipane, which is actually very simple to make. It's really just like a loose almond paste that bakes up around the fruit, and it's really quite delicious. So into a bowl, I've got some softened unsalted butter. Again, needs to be soft, particularly if you're mixing this by hand, which I suggest you do. It's very simple, but you can of course do it in a food processor as well. Regular old white sugar. And the first thing you're going to do is just whisk the butter and sugar together just to get the sugar incorporated and to lighten up the butter a little bit more. Next up is 2 eggs, 2 large eggs. And then I'm going to whisk those in as well. And to really push home the almond flavor that I want this frangipane to be, I'm going to add a couple things. One is a little bit, and I mean a little bit because a little bit goes a long way, of almond extract, just about 1/4 teaspoon or so. And then I'm also going to add in a little bit of vanilla as well. This is vanilla bean paste, but you can use regular vanilla as well. And I'm going to do about 1 teaspoon of that. Combine that, and then the last ingredient that you're going to need for this frangipane is ground almonds or almond flour. Different companies call it different things. And I'm just going to tumble that right in on top. All of it. And give this a whisk just to combine. Whoops. Throwing it all over the counter. So the frangipane is nice and smooth, sort of like thick cake batter. You can put this in the fridge if you're making this the morning of or even a day in advance. but it's perfectly good to use now. I'm just going to set this aside and we're going to prepare our apricots. These beautiful little blushing apricots are the first of the season, and they're beautifully ripe, but even if they were just slightly underripe, perfectly fine to use in a recipe like this because they are going to go into the oven. Speaking of which, the oven is preheated to 350 degrees. So we're just going to take the stone out of the apricots using a chef's knife or paring knife, just run along the natural line of the apricot. And then again, depending on how ripe they are, they'll likely come apart very easily, or you might need to give them a little bit of a tug. And then you've got this little almond shaped pip on the inside or stone, and just click that out. And we're going to keep these apricots as full halves, and you're going to see why when we put this whole dish together. So carry on with your 6 apricots because we're going to use a half of an apricot per little tartlet. Again, and just flick out the little pip. Just carry on with the rest. The dough has been chilled, and when it comes out, if you followed my methodology, it's going to kind of crumble like this, even in its cold state. So all you're going to do is just take a minute just to bring it together into a ball, and don't worry about these little pieces that have fallen off. They're going to act as a bit of our bench flour. I do have a little bit of bench flour to the side if I need it. But once I kind of have a ball together, I'm going to start rolling. And my best tips for rolling are keep moving the dough as much as you can. So after every 3 or 4 passes, just make sure that you can still move it around. Wood, in my opinion, is the best surface to roll out on. And just keep kind of moving it around, never going completely off the edge. Otherwise, your edge is going to get thinner and thinner and thinner. And that's what's ultimately going to start to stick to whatever surface you're using. And if you have any sticking start, whether it be to your pin or to your board, just take a little bit of the bench flour. I just tend to dip my hands in it and just rub a little on the pin. And like I said, after each few passes, just make sure that you can continue to move the dough around. And we're going to roll this out to about 1/4 of an inch. Just finishing up the last few passes here. And what you actually want to see is a few little flecks of the cold butter still in your dough. And again, you just sort of saw I can still move this around the board. And that's about 1/4 of an inch. The other little trick is just every once in a while, take your hand and just run it over, and you can get a sense if you have a few spots that might have a higher elevation, and then you can just use your pin to just focus on that area. This is the pan that I'm going to use. This is a shallow tart pan. You can see the little fluted bottom there. If you don't have one of these pans, you can use like a shallow muffin tin as well. And I've got a ring cutter, biscuit cutter here. And I'm looking to get 12 circles. We'll probably need to do one quick little re-roll out of the dough to get all 12. And to put your little dough circles into your tin, I'm just kind of running them around just to kind of start giving myself a little bit of an edge. And then just plunk these in and just gently press them down into the tin. You'll have a little bit, maybe about 1/8 of an inch height up over the top, depending on which size ring cutter that you use.
Paris, oh Paris.
And my last little pastry round going in. You want to make sure that you keep these cold. So if you don't have your other ingredients ready, put this in the fridge and keep it cold until you're ready to actually fill it and put it in the oven. It's important to keep that butter as cold as possible. Just going to put these to the side. Now this is a bit of an extra step. I've gone ahead and put the Frangipane in a piping bag just because it makes life easier, but you don't have to use a piping bag. A couple of spoons to put it into the tart tin. And we're going to fill these up about halfway with the Frangipane. Frangipane is very good. Now, for your little apricots, you're going to go cut side down right on top of your pastry and Frangipane. Give it a little push down just to add a little bit of weight to the pastry. All right, all of our little blushing bums are on top. This is going to go into the 350-degree oven They're probably going to take somewhere between 26 and 30 minutes. And then once they come out, we're just going to glaze the top just to make them nice and shiny. So into the oven. Our little apricot frangipane tartlets are out of the oven. And the last thing I want to do before serving is just give them a little bit of gloss. So I've just warmed up, melted down a little bit of jam. This is apricot, and I think there's a bit of ginger in here, but you can use any jam that you want, or you can just use honey. And I'm just going to take a pastry brush and just paint over the top, including the part of the pastry that is exposed. And I've just got a nice platter here. The pastry is just nice and golden brown on the bottom. And these were about 28 minutes total in the 350-degree oven. And now time to try one. The little kind of perfectly coral peach bun. And they do get like a little bit wrinkly in the oven, and their skins will kind of shift a bit, so don't worry if that happens. And ideally, if you want to be ladylike, cut this in half, but barely a lady. Come on. Beautiful, light, flaky pastry. A little bit of almond flavor from the frangipane. It's kind of creamy. And then you get this burst, this lift of like citrusy, sweet, floral apricot flavor. It's still warm, but even at room temperature, these are really, really good. Relatively simple, easy French pastry. Try these.